Good morning, sir. Representative Varengio, Senator Lawson, Senator Guglielmo, I'm Kevin Ryan. I'm the state representative from the 130 next district. I am accompanied by a train, Senator Austin, Representative McCarty, and Senator Formica. We have presenting testimony that also includes Representative Riley, who is unfortunately in insurance and voting on bills and wasn't able to be with us today. And we're here to speak in opposition to the raised bill number 5305, an act concerning a request for proposals to qualify an entity to develop a casino gaming facility in the state. We're especially concerned about the section that repeals the authority of the MMCT Venture LLC to operate a casino gaming facility in the state, a joint venture of both the Mashantucket Pequot tribe and the Mohegan tribe. This venture was in response to MGM building a $950 million casino 5 miles from Connecticut's border, 36 miles from Hartford. Without action by Connecticut, the state would lose 9,300 jobs and $337 million in revenue. The Mashantucket Pequot tribal nation and the Mohegan tribe have united around a plan to make sure that doesn't happen. Working together with municipalities and legislators, they want to build a new facility at their expense and save thousands of jobs and millions in revenue. Last year, with the passage of the Public Act 1789, the state agreed with their plan. These two tribes have been a presence in Connecticut for hundreds of years, and with their reservations will continue to have a presence in their home state. Their enterprise involved up to $300 million capital investment. A portion of that money has been used to purchase land for the new facility. No state money will be used. All construction will be done with project labor agreements. The facility will house an additional 2,000 slot machines, 50 table games, 15 poker tables, restaurant, and retail space. The jobs created will be good union jobs, where employers will be paid living wages and benefits. A specified percentage of gross operating revenue will go to host communities and the state. The tribes, as well as the local legislative delegation, realize that jobs and revenue will be lost if Connecticut doesn't respond. Connecticut's existing casinos stand to lose over $702 million. Connecticut residents will spend $252.3 million in New York and Massachusetts casinos because they are more conveniently located for some folks, and up to $100 million annually in the state's share of slot revenue will be displaced. We will lose up to 9,000 direct and indirect gaming jobs. A new casino development, which I think Representative Davis was speaking about, helps protect Connecticut jobs by recapturing 46.1% of the jobs. And so essentially we believe the original agreement will benefit the entire state, and we'll hope the agreement will be maintained to help ensure payments to the state and the jobs in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
So we'd be happy to answer questions because this testimony is from all four of us, and also Representative Riley. We think our time would be better spent rather than giving direct testimony other than what Representative Riley has espoused, that we could answer questions. But I would venture to...
You did not just call me Riley.
I did. I can't help it. Everybody calls you Riley in the town. I don't know. So, I would just say that we're in strong opposition to this, and we know that this would directly negatively impact the whole state, and it will directly impact negatively Eastern Connecticut in particular.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing me to come in today and give testimony in very strong opposition to the bill in front of you for the reasons that were stated. It's really going to have such an adverse negative impact on the state of Connecticut, not only on the state, but particularly to the southeastern region of our state, which has really suffered in trying to get its jobs back and to catch up from the recession. So this is, for me, really an issue about protecting our jobs in the state and really having a fair process. So I'm in here in very strong opposition.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Good morning to members of the committee. I'm Paul Formica, the state senator for the 20th district, which includes the section of town that sends a lot of people to go to work to the two largest resorts of this kind in the world. And I would simply just add this, that I agree with the testimony as written. I have submitted testimony of my own, which reiterates a number of these points. If this were an opportunity between one town in Connecticut and another, this would be one thing. But this is greater than that. And I fully support strengthening our cities throughout the entire state of Connecticut. I think that's important because we all know that will lead the way to recovery. However, in this case, the program that was developed to place the casino in East Windsor so as to protect the revenue that comes from these two resorts, over $250 million each and every year. For the last 25 years, they've been partners with our state. That revenue will be protected, and MGM, we all know, is trying to enhance their opportunity outside of Connecticut border, outside of Connecticut jobs, outside of Connecticut taxes. And so I can't blame them for that, let's be honest. But the fact of the matter is we need to work for the betterment of Connecticut, and at the same time we need to work for the betterment of our cities. And I think that eliminating the opportunity for the East Windsor Casino, after all the vetting that came through this committee and others last year and through the chambers, is not the most economical opportunity for the state of Connecticut, both in terms of continuing the revenue stream for the state of Connecticut that's participated through these tribes, and also for the jobs that will be lost not only in East Windsor but in the areas in southeastern Connecticut will not be made up by the gains if this were to be established anywhere else. So I thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the courtesy of letting us all come up together, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Austin, and all of you. Thank you very much for your testimony. I know that each and every one of you worked tremendously hard for your constituents in Eastern Connecticut. And, you know, some earlier testimony indicated that 5305 was fairness for all. It effectively opened up the process for what, in my estimation, would be 4 casinos. But as I read Ray's Bill 5305, it effectively reverses all of the legislation and repeals the legislation and throws out East Windsor, Connecticut, period. And to Representative Davis's point earlier, what's the end game? Senator Austin, I don't know if you could speak to that.
Thank you very much, and I just want to also state for the record that both of the 2 gaming institutions, which Senator Formica has rightly said are the best in the world, are in the district that I represent. They both land squarely in the district that I represent, and this was not a one-year process. This was a multi-year process that got us to last year's point of supporting 2 of the best businesses in the state of Connecticut. The best businesses in the state of Connecticut that have workers that have worked in those facilities for decades and have supported our communities with resources every year since then. As a matter of fact, Chairman Butler is the head of the United Way funding stream this year and works very diligently to get additional funds for our communities. So I think that what would happen here is that this bill is nothing more than an attempt of MGM to thwart our ability to save jobs in Connecticut. Today, we have 140 towns that send individuals to the 2 gaming institutions. That does not count the businesses that are supported. As a matter of fact, the single largest water user for Norwich Public Utilities is AC Linen, with over 250 workers, part of the Second Chance initiative that we have all supported. Those workers would lose their jobs also. This is not just impacting one business. This is going to impact dozens of businesses in Eastern Connecticut. And while many people talk about the jobs that were lost in other parts of the state, Eastern Connecticut was 9th in the country to realize any economic gain since the Great Recession. 9th in the country. That we have been fighting ever since then to maintain real jobs that support our constituents, and not only our constituents, but I represent 10 towns. That's 130 other towns that send workers down to the 2 gaming institutions, and that does not count indirect jobs in the hotels and motels that line the areas in Montville and Groton, and that provide jobs at AC Linen and provide jobs in a variety of other ways. And again, the largest water user for Norwich Public Utilities is AC Linen, And that would directly impact the whole city of Norwich because they would have to pick up the necessary revenue for water users in the city of Norwich. I see no reason to pass this bill and negate a multi-year process that two great businesses in the state of Connecticut, that we would never do this to any other business. We would not say to Pratt, as a matter of fact, we gave $300 million to Pratt & Whitney. They're not asking for any state dollars. Just 2 years ago, we all worked to make sure that Pratt was supported because it supported many good jobs in the state of Connecticut. Sikorsky, we helped support Sikorsky. We have supported many jobs in this state. This is a direct slap in the face to two of the best businesses in the state of Connecticut that have provided hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue to the state and hundreds of millions of dollars to our cities. As a matter of fact, it takes 40 eastern Connecticut towns to make up one payment one to Bridgeport or one to New Haven or one to Hartford. So, you know, has to Representative DeMasa's point that some of the dollars have gone down. Yes, they have gone down, but they have gone down all over the place. And West Haven gets more money than many of the towns in eastern Connecticut that have the direct loss of revenue. So,
Senator Austin, I apologize. I have a couple of votes in insurance that I have to. I've gotten 15 texts in the last 20 minutes to get across the hall. I really appreciate your comments. I'll just leave it at that. I'm very appreciative of the entire delegation in Eastern Connecticut and the work you've put forward on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Senator Gomes.
Good afternoon, Senator Austin, Mr. Formica, and Kevin Ryan, Rep. Ryan. Me and you always have trouble pronouncing each other's names. I'm listening here, and it sounds like a us versus you, us versus them sort of thing. And what we don't see coming from the city of Bridgeport is that. I understand that you talked about the loss of revenues and protecting revenues, but as we know the compact supplies revenues off of the slot machines. And in their best days, they provided $430 million a year to us. And right now we're down to $260 million and headed towards what people have procrastinated will be $175 million. And while you talk about the jobs that are being lost in eastern Connecticut, down in Bridgeport, we have lost many jobs. Bridgeport was the hub and the center for the whole East Coast for jobs. When I was an international rep for United Steelworkers, I alone represented 3,000 jobs in the local unions that I had there. They're all gone. These are jobs that are gone. While you were talking about protecting things up on the eastern part of Connecticut, we're talking about something for Bridgeport. Prior to this day, I had no feelings about this one or that one. I was sitting in the middle. And the thing of it is, I have no opposition to the tribal Indians, because when my first recognition of that, I told them that I would support the homeboys. I referred to them as the homeboys. But I also represent Bridgeport. And Bridgeport has gotten crapped on a lot. And I intended to speak up for us. We have lost jobs. We have lost opportunities. Down in the 90s, I was one of the people that was advocating for a casino in Bridgeport, and we lost that opportunity. We have great opportunities down in Bridgeport. Within 1 mile of where we intend to put this casino, we have the water, we have the railroad, we have an airport, and we have bus lines. And we missed out on all of that. We're not going to let when I spoke to the newspapers and they interviewed me on what I saw going here, I've had about 6 meetings with people from MGM, and the thing of it is, I told all of them, I have no opinion to make, but I remember one thing. I am not out to hurt anything with the Pequots or anything with the tribal Indians. I am here to look out for Bridgeport. When we talked about the 9,000 jobs that we already have with the tribal Indians, and we talked about the 7,000 jobs that were offered through MGM, we also talked about those 2,000 permanent jobs they promised, and a $675 million entity, casino and hotel. Tell you the truth, I'm the only senator up here that has said, I'm not interested in the money. I'm interested in those 9,000 jobs and the 7,000 jobs to be added. And I'm not eager to give up either one. But it's not a you or us versus them thing. It's we need coexistence. And Bridgeport, it's Bridgeport's time to revive itself. We can remember when my father came to Bridgeport in 1944, he came for a job. And when they said, come, we came from Massachusetts. When they said, come for a job, you didn't even have to say Connecticut. Bridgeport was it. Bridgeport had more industry than any town all up along the eastern seacoast. So what we are looking for is a fair shake, and we're looking for somebody finally to recognize that Bridgeport, 147,000 citizens, are looking for more than lip service from everybody. I end my conversation with that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, if I just may.
Senator Formica.
Thank you very much. Everybody knows that the good senator from Bridgeport is one of the strongest advocates for jobs in the state of Connecticut, and your history clearly shows that. And I want to make sure that you know from my position, and I don't know that I can speak for the others, this is not a Bridgeport versus Eastern Connecticut situation. This is a cash situation to the state of Connecticut, where now we're receiving $250 to $270 million annually to go toward trying to support the budget that we have. There are, at one point, there were 20,000 jobs in southeastern Connecticut from these two resort casinos, which offset the decline in electric boat and was able to save southeastern Connecticut. Now they're down a little bit, that's for sure. But are we going to trade a lot of those jobs and move them to Bridgeport? And is that the best interest for the entire state of Connecticut? I know we have to do something to resurrect Hartford and Bridgeport, New Haven, and make them stronger. But to do that while we weaken other opportunities, I don't think is the right answer. And I would support and work with you any way that I possibly could to get good paying jobs to Bridgeport. But this is a ploy by MGM to eliminate the East Windsor Casino so that those people will drive up the 91 corridor to go to Springfield and support their casino. And they have a history. MGM has a history of not living up to the promises that they've made. And so I'm willing to stand here and work with Bridgeport, work with you, Senator, because I have great respect for your ability and your passion for jobs. And I know that I can speak for everybody that we will continue to work together, but to eliminate one set of funding to create a smaller set of funding is not where we want to be at the state of Connecticut. We're one voice, one state, one job opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Any other
Through
questions?
the chair, I appreciate where you're at, and you appreciate where I'm at. Like I said, I'm not out to trade jobs. Over the years, I got 55 years in the labor movement. And in that time, I've negotiated a lot of contracts. And I've never traded one job for another. Everybody has a right to a job to support their families. We have a right in Bridgeport for somebody to start listening to us to bring some sort of development to this city where it used to be. And it's not, and like I said, it's not a you versus us thing. I am not for trading any of those 9,000 jobs. Those jobs with United Auto Workers up in the casinos are part of what I helped establish in the past. And I helped establish jobs in Bridgeport years ago. Well, they're gone. And what we want now is some opportunity for our city to develop itself to be what it used to be. We were called at one time the arsenal of democracy during the Second World War. We were on Hitler's third on his list to bomb if they ever reached the mainland during that war. And what do I know about that war? I was 9 years old when it ended in 1945. I've been around a long time. And I've been around in Bridgeport where I get elected in that city, whether the party supports me or not, because I defend my citizens. And the thing with it is, just as I know Kathy's a strong advocate for everything she does. But the thing with it is, I'm not giving up anything that would harm the city of Bridgeport. And I'm not for harming anybody else in that state. I say there might be room for everybody. Those 9,000 jobs up there, I hope they stay. The 7,000 that are being offered by MGM down in Bridgeport, I'm looking to have some of them come to Bridgeport. If I don't, what the hell am I doing? I'm not doing my job if I don't advocate for Bridgeport. And that's why all these people are here now wearing these green shirts. I'm glad to see them here. I'm glad to see other people from all parts of the state. Let us know that when we talk about revenues, it doesn't come from one place at all. It comes from all over the state, and we want to be able to supply revenues to this any budgets that we have, but we can't do it without jobs. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. If I can just bring, Mr. Chairman, in closing, I wanted to mention Senator Heather Summers sends her support along with this, so that's 3 Senate districts that we have up there that are filled with people that work in these areas. But if you refer to page 58 of the bill, and it speaks about the revenue disbursement from this casino proposed in Bridgeport, I think we have to multiply the cash expected from that dollar versus the casinos in the other area, plus the new East Windsor casino, which would all be negated if this bill were to pass, and kind of balance to see whether this number would meet or exceed the other. And it'd be my view that a smaller casino could in no way generate the money that's being generated now by the 2 largest resorts in the world and the casino in East Windsor. So again, I've taken a lot of time up, and I appreciate it, and I certainly appreciate the good senator's passion, and I thank him and stand ready to work with him in any way we can to move the city of Bridgeport forward.
Thank you. Senator Gomes.
I want to end my conversation with this. While we joust with each other about what should be in East Windsor or what should be in Bridgeport, we have a court case that is pending. Do you have any anticipation of when that court case is going to end? Because I know from MGM side, I personally questioned them on that, and they said that they will never give up that court case. And I think maybe when the Attorney General testifies here, he has testimony in here, you'll find out that there might be quite a holdup on anything happening either in East Windsor or Bridgeport, depending on what that court case comes out to. And I think, I'm not thinking, I have had an interview with the Attorney General. I know just about what's going to be in his mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Damasi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's good to see all of you here, and Senator Gomes is a tough act to follow, I'll tell you. But again, I just want to stress, the same position, and I certainly will recognize Senator Austin's comments, and we absolutely do. As an Alliance District, we do see a fair share of money. Even though it is decreasing, we do see a fair share, and we certainly need every penny. But I think the senator is absolutely correct in his assumptions, and let's take the money out of it. Let's take the money completely out of the equation. And the bottom line is here, we have a current system. Forget MGM, forget the tribes, look at the system, look at the meat and bolts of what we're looking at here. The system's failing. And you can continue with this operation in East Windsor, but we are still going to be facing serious revenue shortfalls in the years to follow. And West Haven will, at some point, see no Pequot revenue, and so will some of the surrounding towns that still receive it. That is the trend that we're heading in. And so my problem with this is the process. Because, let's face it, when you have a system that hasn't worked in 10 years, that's continuing to decline, trying to put a Band-Aid on it and say, we're going to stop the bleeding, because that's the term I've heard a lot, this is going to stop the bleeding, I don't think that's the best policy. So, my question to you, I guess, would be, first of all, do we have a workforce development plan for East Windsor?
Yes.
Okay. And in that tentative, I'm assuming it's not a tentative plan, it should be hashed at this point, are there workforce training sites that are going to be open? What is the extent of that plan, Or overview, I guess. I mean.
Are you wondering whether or not MGM has promised the city of New Haven a training facility for their
No, I'm
gaming
wondering
industries?
what we're doing in East Windsor. Because, listen, MGM is not certainly the bill that was passed last year. So since East Windsor, since we've started construction there, I'm wondering what is their job training plan? Are they opening job training facilities? Are they?
They don't
what is
need to
their
open
plan?
up any job training facilities.
Okay.
They currently train people very well in the two largest gaming institutions in the world.
Okay, so there's no plan for future facilities. Okay,
There's no need to do so.
Okay,
Not
That's
planned. There's no need to.
interesting. So let me just ask you this then. I think this is going to continue. It would seem the way it's gone. We have a piece of legislation that was passed last year. So where are we as a state, and take the casinos out of it, where are we going to replace this revenue from that we are going to continue to lose? I mean, say the Pequot Fund is 50% 5 years from now from where it is today. Where are we going to replace that revenue?
When you say the system's broken, I think, Representative, I think the point that you're alluding to is the fact that we have seen a decrease in visits to the Mohegan Sun and the Foxwoods because of the fact that casinos opened in New York, 2 facilities opened in New York, which took away some of their business. New facilities opened in Rhode Island, which also took away some of the people who visit Foxwoods and Mohegan. So therefore, they took in less money, so there was less money for them to contribute to the Mohegan Pequot Fund. That will continue as long as the casino's open. That money will be there. Well, and that's what. So the tribes watched that happen twice with the casinos in New York, the casinos in Rhode Island. They saw it happening a third time with the casinos in Massachusetts, so we can't let it happen again. We have to take some kind of action to mitigate what effects this is going to have, because obviously, their business outlook was this would really be detrimental to us. It would be detrimental to the state, as I mentioned in my testimony. So this time they said we're going to take action. We're going to prevent this from occurring, which is what they're doing, trying to stem that flow so that they don't see another decrease. As long as the casinos are opening, there will be money going into the Mohegan Pequot Fund to be distributed to the towns, unless we, at this level, the legislative level, make a change to that fund, the formulation and how the money is distributed.
So let me ask you this. Say the committee ended up taking out the piece of the bill that I guess you would say precludes East Windsor from moving forward. Say that piece was removed. And say it was just a basic, we wanted an RFP for future gaming proposals for other communities within the state, or maybe even near East Windsor. It would have to be rewritten. But would any of you testifying be in support of that? I would assume no, but I'll ask.
I really don't think that the question is, at least from the way you're putting it, doesn't posit any answer whatsoever, because it doesn't give us anything to provide a response to. The state is the one that chose the East Windsor site. That was not chosen by the 2 tribes. The 2 tribes said, we think we need a third venture. We chose that. It wasn't that this was something. We chose North Central Connecticut. And they put out an RFP on that, and they looked at 5 other sites. So this is not something that came and they said, geez, we like East Windsor, it's a pretty community. It's a pretty community, I've been there. But that wasn't chosen in a fashion that was done in a direct negation of other areas. That was done as a result of action we took the year before last year. So that they are following the rules that we set for them. This is not something that we decided, that they decided, geez, we only want to go to North Central, we don't want to go to Bridgeport, we don't want to go to Hartford, we don't want to go here. They did that work. And they did that work at our direction. And Representative McCarty?
I would just like to echo some of the same sentiments, and you mentioned the word process. Well, we're far along in the process right now, and I think as a state, you asked, what are we going to do if we continue to lose revenue? Well, we need to do more in the state to build up the state of Connecticut with tourism and with other areas that we can improve employment throughout the state. And if you'll excuse me, to Senator Gomes, I'm interested in revitalizing the urban centers and in helping Bridgeport and helping our cities in the state of Connecticut. I grew up in Fairfield, very fond of Bridgeport, went to school in Black Rock, so I know the city well and the airport, and I have my sentiments are with you. We need to build up our urban centers, but right now we're in a process. We voted on this, we've moved far along on it. We want to save the jobs. We want to have good employment here in the state, and I think to reverse this at this time would have a very adverse negative impact on not only our area in southeastern Connecticut, but in the entire state. It's time to move forward and find other means and avenues to protect our urban centers and to revitalize our cities, but I don't think moving the casino down to the Bridgeport area is the answer at this time.
So I'll just close, Mr. Chair, with your leave. I appreciate the answers from my colleagues, and I would just say this. You know, I've been in the legislature a short time, that is true, but I am certainly already tired with playing defense, and I would like to play some offense. And I think that, in all honesty, you know what? I thought the question was pretty clear, but basically, let's face it, if this went through and then Bridgeport came out and said, you know, we'd like the state to consider an RFP for a casino in Bridgeport, the individuals that spoke today would still be against that because, again, you know, we're trying to pick communities, and I'm not trying to pick communities. I'm trying to look at jobs. I'm trying to look at education funding, and in all honesty, let's face it, we believe in every other aspect of government that, you know, it's a good thing. A competitive process is a good thing. The bidding process is a good thing. But all of a sudden, when it concerns this, it's no longer a good thing. We don't want to see what anyone offers. We don't want to see what jobs are on the table. Does MGM have other motives besides opening here? Sure. Listen, I think most people testifying, listen, everyone's going to protect their home team. Everyone's going to protect their best interests. I get that. Each of us here has 20-some thousand constituents we're trying to protect, as well as the state as a whole. So I would just close with this. You know, I think things will continue to move forward. I don't think we will necessarily, the legislature might be ready for this, but I think that's unfortunate because I think, you know, we're going to be in a serious position 5 to 10 years from now, and that is a sad case to see. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
So if I could just respond to Representative DeMassa, but the fact is that 140 cities and towns in the state of Connecticut send workers to the gaming institutions. 140 towns out of our 169 towns send workers today they don't all come from eastern Connecticut. There are 9,300 jobs at risk. There are 12,000 people that work at the gaming institutions from the 10 towns that I represent. And to Representative DeMassa's point on a workforce development, I strongly suggest he come up to the Eastern Workforce Development Board, which does an excellent job on mitigating the job losses, and we are working very hard. Now that is working on training for jobs in Electric Boat, Pratt, Sikorsky, and the over 4,000 manufacturers in the state of Connecticut that are looking to be supported. These two gaming institutions and the tribal nations that have formed them have been in this state, as Representative Ryan has said, for hundreds of years. Sometimes I call him Riley, I don't know. He and Emmett standing next to each other, they look kind of the same.
You're just dead to me.
So I point out that there is a workforce development plan that is working towards the pipeline to manufacturing that would certainly benefit the urban areas. As a matter of fact, upstairs I have the list of manufacturers that are subcontractors to Electric Boat, who is looking for some 30,000 jobs to fill in manufacturing. So I think that we are working towards workforce development, and that's not lip service, that's real dollars.
Senator Gomes.
For the third time. And they don't usually allow that much up here. But I've heard things that said here that I think needs to be spoken to. We talked about East Windsor and last year where we voted for East Windsor. But when I was in the papers and everywhere, And then why I requested this public hearing is because of transparency. And in order for us to be transparent, let's talk about last year when we voted for that bill, when we voted for East Windsor. And let's talk about the game that is being played here. East Windsor, one of the reasons why a lot of us voted for East Windsor is because it was a defense against what is being done in Springfield. The casino that's being built in Springfield to cut off some of that revenue from there. And when we talk about Bridgeport, let's talk about that. We're cutting off the revenue from New York, and that's what this was all about. But the thing of it is, in order to be transparent, we need to tell all the tales. And all of what this is all about. We said we did not want to make it a us versus them, and I still don't. I'm an advocate for jobs. I still thinking about those 9,000 jobs, and I'm thinking about the 7,000 here. But it's Bridgeport's time, and Bridgeport is going to get what's coming to them. And if we have to fight for it, and somebody else thinks that it is cutting off somebody else's revenue, we need to worry about ours. We're suffering down there. We're suffering for jobs. When we talk about those 140,000 jobs that are being, or 140, not 140, 140 towns that are sending jobs to the casinos up there, some of that is coming from out of our section of the state too, but more needs to come from our state for having jobs. Those 7,000 jobs that are going to be created down here in Bridgeport are needed not only for us. We're in Fairfield County, the richest county in the whole damn country, and we're here. We got people that can't find a $15 an hour job. Now, what does that say for you? Right in the middle of the wealthiest people in this state. 29,000 millionaires in this state. And we just created 17 billionaires in this state. And we got people down in Bridgeport can't even get a job to feed their families. We're going to fight tooth and nail for every damn thing we can get. And if it harms somebody else, you remember this is harming us. When you neglect us, we have to fight for ourselves, and that's what the hell we're going to do.
Okay, thank you, Senator. I have a question. First, a comment. I really have tremendous respect for all of you and for your advocacy from the outset on this casino issue. Your constituents should certainly be proud of all the work that you've done, and you've been consistent. I don't necessarily agree with everything, but I respect that opinion. And just for full disclosure, it seems like if you don't side on the side of the tribes, that you're with MGM. And I just want to make it very clear to everyone in this room that as I sit here as an elected official, I sit here representing the people of Connecticut, regardless of the players that have been mentioned today, as we all do. But I do have a question for you. While this bill was being debated last year, the East Windsor Casino Bill, it was thought that an approval from the BIA Interior would file it on the Federal Registry, which was part of one of the conditions of the bill to authorize the East Windsor Casino. We were all led to believe, and no fault of anyone's here, that that letter was imminent. Today, months later, that hasn't happened. And there's a question here. My question is that it seems like that this very issue could delay the progress or the authorization to the East Windsor Casino. So would any of you anticipate any changes that would eliminate that requirement?
I will let Senator Austin speak to it, but my understanding is there's been some movement in the situation in the last few weeks, and it shouldn't be long, and that's why the demolition project began in East Windsor. But Senator Austin may be able to speak more in detail to that.
So that is also my understanding, and in addition to that, I would point clearly to interference from Las Vegas, Nevada representatives who interfered with the ability for that action to happen in a timely fashion. And I don't believe that, we need any other approvals for the BIA, because I believe that the BIA gave tacit approval already, and our federal delegation, along with our executive branch, has brought action against the BIA and their inaction directly in conflict to the rules that govern the BIA. And that is directly as a result of MGM making a direct attack against Connecticut jobs.
Okay, so you're not anticipating removing that requirement from the current legislation?
From the current legislation that's in right now,
Yeah. Yes.
if I had my way, I would remove that requirement because I don't think it's necessary. But many other people asked for that as a feeling of comfort, and so I don't plan on removing it today, but I'll certainly keep it in mind.
Okay, and thank you for that response. I know it's long. We have a long day here, but I couldn't agree with you more with respect to jobs and revenue and everything that you described here today. I think where we may differ is that how we get to those jobs. So, for example, we used the BIA question of whether or not it should be on the registry. Now, that issue is in the court. That has to be resolved, and I'm not a lawyer, for full disclosure. So I don't know. You say it takes, a decision may be coming down shortly. Some would argue that it may take a year, and compound it with an appeal process, it may take 2 years. And then we all know, because MGM has clearly indicated their intention to sue with respect to the commerce and the constitutional issues, which creates another whole legal argument, which would take some time. So in some of the legal people that I've talked to, they've estimated it could take anywhere from 2, 5, up to a decade, many years before this very issue gets resolved. I don't know. But given that scenario, what I'm not willing to do is to put those jobs aside, even if it's for 2 years. So if it's really about jobs, protecting jobs and protecting revenue, then let's hit the reset button. Let's start over, and let's have this open competitive process, which would remove, in essence, some of these potential legal pitfalls that were inherent in the existing legislation. Again, I don't want to get into a court battle here, but that's just some of my concerns going forward. So you're more than welcome to comment.
Thank you for letting me comment, Mr. Chairman. And I would say again that we're just feeding into MGM's hands. They have said at their shareholders' meetings that they will do whatever they can to tank jobs in Connecticut. They will do whatever they can to get rid of jobs in Connecticut and to stymie the East Windsor facility, which they know protects our jobs and our revenue. That's what they have said at their shareholders' meetings. Those tapes have been readily available for people to listen to. They're online. All you have to do is listen to them. In addition to that, when MGM says that they're going to bring 7,000 jobs down to Bridgeport, if you looked at their larger casino that's down in Virginia or down in that end of the country, they haven't even brought that many jobs there, which is twice the size of what they're planning in Virginia, in Bridgeport. So where are they coming up with these numbers? And MGM has not done anything for the state of Connecticut. They have made promises to the people of Connecticut twice already and have not followed through with those promises. And that's just a fact. That's a fact. They did that in Eastern Connecticut too, where they walked away. Time and time again, they have made promises to the people in the state of Connecticut and have not followed through with them. Time and time again. Every promise that has been made by the Mashantucket Pequots and the Mohegans, they have followed through with, they have doubled down on, and they have been a good corporate partner in Connecticut. Always a good corporate partner in Connecticut. I didn't know that we were in the business of getting rid of people who had been here in this state for hundreds of years, and for the last 2.5 decades have operated businesses that they have worked with us on. Their agreements have always been followed through with, and they have brought people into this state, and they have supported tourism in this state, which provides a 3-to-1 return on investment. And each day they work with our residents from 140 of our 169 towns that send workers to the gaming institutions. This is a direct attack on jobs in Connecticut, and we already had a process. We had a 2-year process. This wasn't one bill. This was 2 separate bills, and we fought hard for these bills. And we now want to say to them, you bought that land, you followed all the rules, you did what we told you to do, forget it. We're not going to back you up. What does that message send to any other business that comes into Connecticut? Because we're going to give them a promise, and then we're not going to follow through on it. Because that's what we're saying here today. That we're saying that the process that we followed, fought hard on, and it wasn't an easy fight. All 4 of us worked very hard on that fight. It was not something that happened willy-nilly. It was a long session last year, and the session before was, while not as long in time, was as long. And we followed and we requested this business, these businesses who are not asking for any state dollars. As a matter of fact, they're giving the state dollars, that we asked them to follow this process. We voted on it, and now we're going to say, forget it. We're not supporting you. We don't care what you say. We don't care about you. We don't care about that business. And we don't care about any of those 140 towns that send the residents to the 2 gaming institutions. And not only that, we're willing to put at risk $300 million in revenue on the slots machines. So I don't understand that philosophy.
Well, to that end, we'll just agree to disagree on that last piece. But again, thank you so much for coming. Oh, I'm sorry. Representative Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I too care about jobs. With all due respect, and I think I pointed this out quite a few times at our hearings last year, I thought the process was horrible. You know, I am for open and transparent process. You know, I'm new to this process up here, but I promised the taxpayers and the voters that I would do what I thought was best for the state of Connecticut. Not necessarily just my district, but the state of Connecticut. And through the hearings, I remember asking representatives from the tribes whether or not this was for economic development or was it to stop dollars from leaving the state. We've got a problem in the state, and a major part of that is economic development. And they agreed with me that it was not economic development. I think as we move forward and we get a report and we know what will be of benefit to the entire state, I think we can make a decision, because this deals with gambling off of tribal lands. It's a totally different game here. And I wanted that to be known. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none again, thank you very much for your testimony.